Hanna Rakowska. Dear friend, welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast.
Hi, Stacy. Thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Oh, your microphone sounds nice and clear. That's amazing.
Oh, great.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Okay, so that's high quality. All right. So Hanna and I know each other through Instagram, and she and I have become friends, teammates, working together to advocate for just better living in general and a healthy lifestyle. And super excited to be along this wellness journey with her. And Hanna, I wanted to have you on because you are, you know, all things cancer. That's what you do. And you help people that are going along a journey that have cancer. You also help people understand how to prevent it. And I can't wait to hear all about that today.
Yes, I don't know if I know all things about cancer, but I do try my best to know as much as I possibly can to help my clients and public,
Yeah.
general public around prevention for sure.
So yes, yeah, I know. I said that and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have said that because
That's
none of us
okay.
know all the things. But you really do. This is what you spend a lot of your time doing, understanding and mechanisms of cancer and figuring out how to help people.
Mhm.
So tell me a little bit now about how this all started for you
Mhm.
and a little bit about your journey toward health.
Yeah, great question. Of course, it always starts somewhere, hey? And I was actually really lucky that for me it started at the age of 19. I was actually in the dental hygiene program going towards the program, and I found a lump in my neck, just basically a little tiny nodule in my neck above my collarbone area, and it turned out to be Hodgkin's lymphoma. Uh, I went through, the whole journey of navigating through my treatment options. And for some reason, my gut feeling told me that the chemotherapy and the radiation that was proposed for stage 4 cancer when I had stage 1 was not really aligned with what I had. And I walked away from the cancer agency here in British Columbia. I found some books on nutrition and herbal medicine, traveled to Peru, Lima, Peru, to an oncology institute where they treated cancer with botanical medicine as well as chemotherapy. That's where I kind of got just a week's worth of really intensive nutrition and herbal medicine education around my cancer and how I could help support its healing. And I came back to Vancouver, BC with that knowledge, switched over to a whole food plant-based diet, drank copious amounts of herbal teas, found a new oncologist in Vancouver who supported the nutritional therapy and botanical medicine aspect of my treatment, basically diversified, individualized my treatment to include 1/8 of the original proposed treatment because my tumor had already shrunk by that point from nutrition and herbal medicine. And I ended up having a much smoother treatment. I know for a fact because of what I was doing in terms of complementary medicine. And a huge part of that was nutrition. And as soon as that whole journey ended, I realized how many people were suffering from not just cancer, but the effects of its treatment. And I wanted to help other people going through it so that they could maybe experience fewer side effects and enhanced treatment outcomes like I had. And because cancer is a very serious disease, obviously, but the modern treatments, the conventional treatments, can be what actually leads to mortality in some cases. So I just wanted to help other people dealing with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people don't, I mean, like so many people, and even myself, up until just not that long ago, maybe the last few years, didn't realize that like you just said, the cancer treatments that are proposed are oftentimes the ones that actually take us out
Mm-hmm.
versus the disease itself. So uh I don't know why it really hit home for me. It was probably like Chris beat cancer. Chris, I can't remember his last name, but
Chris work. Yeah.
Chris worked. It was probably something that he said, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like I finally like really connected the dots, and it just, yeah. So okay,
Yeah.
We could go down, you're down a rabbit hole. So, all right. How did you feel when you were diagnosed?
I felt complete. I think like everybody feels, you know what the feeling was, everything that mattered to me before that point, like dating or small little friendship problems. I was 19, right? So dealing with, maybe some work drama or whatnot, everything just disappears in the matter of, half a second, and the ground beneath you just disappears, and you feel like you're just in complete shock. And I mean, I think shock is the biggest feeling I felt. And then fear overtakes you, and then just a complete sadness of, how can this be happening to me? And to be honest with you, and this is maybe, I feel like this is a little bit maybe embarrassing, but it's a feeling that a lot of women go through. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my hair. Like that was the first,
Yeah.
or the second thought. First it was, I'll lose my life. And then it was, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my hair and I'm about to go into school. And how will that look? Right. How will my life be changing from this point on? But, yeah. And then, walking away from that, proposed treatment, because it was just a standard protocol, it was individualized. That gave me the power to learn about complementary therapy and to really just take charge of my life and realize that I can support my body alongside conventional treatment as well. And that is what gave me that motivation and the enthusiasm to actually heal from this, and to approach it from a totally different angle, which was basically, okay, how have you been living your life, Hannah? Which is not very healthy. And let's just, refocus and actually heal this thing, because it's just a symptom of a larger imbalance in the body, right? And so it's not just about the tumor, it's about multiple biochemical things that happen, obviously, that are out of balance, out of whack. And I had been doing all the things to support those imbalances in my life until that point.
Wow.
So,
And
yeah.
isn't it so interesting that you just said what complementary and then conventional? I feel like, and it's easier said than, like it's easier for me to say that because whatever, I'm not a doctor or I've never had cancer, all the things. But it's sad that we're living in a day that the conventional is the allopathic way. And I'm not dogging that. Like there is totally need for this, right? But instead of it being the other way around, like what you said, complementary or like a more holistic, natural approach, that should, in my opinion, that should be the first thing that we do. And then the complementary would be what we call the conventional way. It's just an interesting world we're living in these days.
Stacey couldn't have said any better. Honestly, there's a great book called Life Over Cancer by Dr. Keith Block. He runs an integrative center in Illinois. And it's like the greatest guide, I think, for any cancer patient, because he talks about exactly that. The allopathic standard cancer care reduces the primary tumor bulk, like surgery, chemotherapy, radiation. It shrinks the tumor. But does that actually complete your treatment? No, because there are renegade cancer cells that probably escaped at that point of time. Studies show that cancer patients in remission who have been told that they're in remission, 50% of them actually have metastases to other sites of the body. And those cancer cells can then, regroup and develop a tumor at that site, right? And so complete cancer treatment requires an entirely holistic approach and healing the body, and looking at all the different the hostile environment that you had prior to cancer that helped its development, like the oxidation levels in your body, the inflammation levels in your body, the gut microbiome imbalance, high blood sugar, blood like dysregulate blood coagulation, sorry, and just so many factors are involved. And if you just remove the tumor, you're not really treating the cause, and you're not really treating the entire disease. And many times, and oftentimes it recurs because we're not actually treating, and we're not actually healing the entire disease itself.
Wow. That I did not know statistically. about 50%, you said, people who have told that they're in remission, there's renegade cells. That's crazy. That's sad. That's shocking and sad. Okay, I just have a really random question that just popped in my mind. So I want to ask you that now before I forget it. Did you do juicing protocol?
Yeah, Stacey, honestly, I always forget to mention this, but yes, that was a huge part of my treatment. And I always forget to mention this. My parents bought a juicer. Literally my dad quit his job and just stayed home with me and made me herbal teas and juices, you know, every hour on the hour, herbal tea juice. And it was all day. I couldn't eat beets for a very long time after that, because when you're going through chemo and drinking certain things, it's you become kind of averse to them. But yeah, juicing was a huge part of my protocol. And that's why I do recommend juicing for my clients currently if they're going through something serious.
Okay. Yeah, because I haven't heard you talk about that very much. And I know you use herb. You're like, well, yes, that was like half of the part. But yeah, okay. So, and I don't want to give all of the things away, because you're going to be a guest in Holistic Mama Society, and we're going to go into like an even deeper dive in there. But I want to ask you, Hannah, when did you realize that eating plants is really the way to go? Like, what were some red flags that you saw that potentially other foods like animal products would be conducive to cancer? Like, when did that all happen for you?
Yeah, so basically I didn't really make the entire, I mean, honestly, we're learning every day, right? But I didn't make the full connection, I would say, till 5 years later. You know, I really was so focused on just juicing and eating whole food plant-based based on what the oncologists in Peru told me to do, but I didn't really realize why. And of course, like my blood markers improved during chemo. My oncologist here in Vancouver was, you know, shocked. He's like, I don't know why your blood markers are staying the same. They're not, you know, they're not out of whack like you would usually see with on chemotherapy. Like your white blood cells aren't changing, and everything is really stable. So I saw those aspects of it, and I realized, okay, like I'm doing something right here, but I didn't really realize why plants were so healthful until I went to school, until I just decided to, okay, I need to study this in more detail. If I really want to help people, I can't just talk about, you know, juicing and eat your legumes and bean or and greens. I have to actually get an education around it. And that's when I learned about the importance of or the impact of a plant forward lifestyle around cancer, and you know, reducing inflammatory foods and carcinogenic foods that are often present, carcinogens that are often present in meat and animal foods, as well as ultra processed foods. That kind of happened within 5 years of my diagnosis. Yeah.
Wow. So can you break down, like, let's talk about animals and animal products. Like, what about them what about them, I don't want to say cause cancer, but like, what about them helps the progression of cancer cells that we all have in our body, right? That we get largely to choose if we're turning on or off through lifestyle, not all the way, but like a huge part. What is it about animal products and their byproducts that are causing this growth?
Wonderful question. It's a lot more loaded than people might imagine, because it's not just one aspect. It's actually various aspects. And no, Stacey, you're right. There's so dietary factors are linked with are directly related to 30 to 35% of all cancers, and a large part of that is, of course, the intake of animal foods, right? So animal foods have several carcinogenic potential factors. The one that we hear about mostly, just based on the World Cancer Research Fund's data, is the aspect of cooked meat carcinogens. So the heterocyclic amines that are formed when we cook meat, as well as the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that are formed when basically from the smoke and like the juices dripping from meat when we're grilling or barbecuing, and then they go into the smoke, and then the fumes go into the meat, and then we eat those carcinogens. So there are the cooked meat carcinogens as one category. Heme iron is also another one. And so the cooked meat carcinogens are directly cancer causing. The World Cancer Research Fund has actually classified them as carcinogens, and we know that red meat is a probable human carcinogen, grade 2A carcinogen. We know that processed meat is a grade or group 1 carcinogen. So it's the evidence is really, really strong in terms of it being carcinogenic to humans. And one aspect of that is the fact that there are cooked meat carcinogens in both red meat and processed meat. Another aspect are the N-nitroso compounds that are found in meat, not just cooked meat, but even raw meat. And the N-nitroso compounds are basically compounds that include nitrosamines and nitrosamides, and both of those can damage the gut lining and can then lead to or promote cancerous changes within our gut lining and can lead to colorectal cancer. It's mainly with meat. The main link is with colorectal cancer. There's also some association with breast cancer, prostate cancer, and other gastric cancers, but the main association is with colorectal cancer risk. So we have the cooked meat carcinogens, we have the N-nitroso compounds in meat. Heme iron, as I mentioned, also is heme iron actually stimulates the production of N-nitroso compounds. And the other aspect is our gut bacteria. When we have a diet that's high in meat products and saturated fat as a result, we actually harbor gut bacteria that then convert bile acids from the liver into secondary bile acids that are carcinogenic. And those bile acids lead to the formulation of free radicals, which are, of course, carcinogenic and can wreak havoc on our gastrointestinal tract and can lead to cancerous changes and mutagenic changes. So there are various compounds in meat. And also the one that we hear about a lot when we talk about, for example, breast cancer is the estrogen and other growth promoting factors in meat and other animal products. When we're talking about, for example, dairy is full of estrogen because the mother cow has to be, she's producing milk for her calf. So there's estrogen in her milk. There's also insulin-like growth factor in milk. And that's also present, of course, both of those are present in meat as well as other growth factors. And growth factors have been found to be linked with increased risk of various cancers. So like we know that women who have high insulin-like growth factor levels in their blood have an increased risk of breast cancer, up to 38% increased risk of breast cancer, for example. So there are so many factors in animal foods that are problematic.
So when you're talking about the N-nitrosamines, does that have anything to do with the formulation of TMAO? You were talking about the secondary bile acids. Like, is that what you're talking about? Does that have anything to do with TMAO?
Honestly, Stacey, I don't even know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that, but I feel like it does. I have to look.
Yeah.
I know I've read it. I know I've read about it. But
it's a lot of molecular things that were like that you're talking about. But okay. And all right. So not to overwhelm people, but this is incredibly important information. Now, you were talking about processed meat. Can you break that down a little bit so that people can understand what that means?
Yeah. So processed meats are any meats that are cured or smoked, preserved essentially. And they include foods processed meats that are a huge part of our diet in North America, unfortunately.
The ones that are found on charcuterie boards. Can we just say that out loud, please?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Every time I see a charcuterie board on Instagram, I'm just shaking my head. Like, this is literally like promoting cigarettes to people.
Yeah.
And a group 1 carcinogen, a proven carcinogen by the world leading authority on cancer risk and diet, the World Cancer Research Fund. and it's not being blasted across TVs and radios all over the place. Like, and we're still doing this, right? And a lot of these, a lot of health practitioners are even posting photos of charcuterie boards. So yeah, these meats include bacon, ham, all sorts of deli meats, sausages, hot dogs, beef jerky, probably missing a few here. But yeah, anything that's basically processed, cured, smoked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Salami,
Salami.
bologna. So, and then, first off, I have to say two things about this. It makes me super angry that my child he's like in homeschool and like we're learning words and all that stuff. I can't get over how many times there's like meat in like in their teachings, like the word ham, and like it's all over and I'm like, and then there's hot dogs and we're just like, ugh. Like I get it to an extent, but like why don't you put a plant in there? Why don't you put some broccoli in there instead so that they can learn how to say broccoli, right? Like spell that out, like instead of whatever. Just anyways, I'm starting to see how there's conditioning involved here, a lot of conditioning, a lot of programming with just subsidized foods that are keeping us all sick. I mean, and it's even being taught to our children. So that, and then also with processed meat, like there's so many, I call it nutriwashing because it's just like the beauty industry, like greenwashing or, cleaning products and stuff like that, where you think you're getting something safer. You're not. There are there's bacon, there's turkey sausage, there's all this stuff. And it's like without nitrates. But guess what? Celery extract.
That's right.
Is the same. It actually, like, it's a different way to preserve it. It's a different form of nitrate, right? But it does the exact same thing in your gut. So don't get fooled when it comes to buying processed meat that says nitrate free. It's no different, and it still is promoting cancer growth. I had to get that out of the way.
Yeah, no, that's actually excellent because even in nutrition school, I remember we learned about this, and we learned the opposite, basically telling us that it's okay, like it's okay to consume these foods because they are, celery juice is used as the preservative, not other aspects. So yeah, great point, because it does have the same effect.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to say, like most people don't realize, is that sometimes we think about, well, like nitrates are present in plant foods as well, right? They are. But the thing is that the body converts nitrates into either N-nitroso compounds or nitric oxide, which is really, really healthy and health promoting. And the thing is that the polyphenols and the antioxidants in our plant foods are actually what help the conversion of nitrates that we ingest into nitric oxide. So like they favor the conversion to nitric oxide rather than N-nitroso compounds. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
There's a confusion around that as well.
Yeah, there is a lot of confusion around that. And I try to explain this to my dad and he's just like, nah, like what I'm like, no, like seriously, please. Anyways, okay, let's move on to ultra processed foods. Hannah, can you explain to us really what that means? And then also how are these ultra processed foods promoting cancer?
Yeah, so the ultra processed food topic is actually, I feel like it's a newer topic in the world of nutrition and cancer risk and nutrition. We've always talked about, refined sugar and animal products, but ultra processed foods are kind of their own category nowadays. And it's because more and more studies are coming out and regarding them. And so ultra processed foods are, of course, all the foods that we find that are prepackaged, frozen foods, gas station pastries, chips, cookies, biscuits, etc. And of course, refined sugar falls into that category as well. And they are basically now, studies are now showing that the consumption of ultra processed foods is in fact linked to an increased risk of cancer. I don't want to butcher the statistics. So I'm just going to take a quick peek at the statistics. But I don't actually have them in front of me. I believe that the the consumption of ultra processed foods increases our cancer risk by about 12%. Of various cancers. And so scientists actually aren't aware of the specific mechanisms or the specific factors involved, because there are so many. There are so many additives, preservatives, stabilizers, colorants, gums, etc., that are involved. And so we don't actually know the specific mechanism there, but because there are just so many. And of course, we want to stay away from those foods. They're ultra processed. They're not in their whole state. They're not whole food plant-based by any means. And so, they can certainly be a part of a healthy diet, but they should be a minimal part of a healthy diet, if anything at all.
Yeah. So what are the main cancers that, what are the top cancers?
Our main cancers in North America are colorectal cancer. Well, lung cancer is number one, colorectal cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, the gastric cancers, the hormone-driven cancers are the leading causes of death in cancer. And we now know that diet is related to, on average, 35% of those cancers. But the degree to which dietary factors are related to cancers vary according to the type. So, for example, with colorectal cancer, which I believe is the second leading cause of cancer-related death in North America.
Yeah.
So diet is related to, they're saying now between 70 to 90% of all colorectal cancers are directly caused by diet and lifestyle. So
does not surprise me.
Right? It's shocking. It's shocking that it's not, I don't know. I always find it just so shocking that we were so fearful around, COVID, for example, where the risk of death was relatively low for people who weren't at risk or who didn't have, chronic diseases. But when we look at something like cancer, where the risk is, the risk of developing cancer in your lifetime in North America is about 48%. So
48?
Almost 40.
Okay.
So it's about one in two, right? In the States, about 1 in 3 in Canada, 1 in 2 in the UK. And so when we look at that, I mean, shouldn't these factors that we have so much control over be just literally all over the news every single day, when it's costing our healthcare system billions of dollars a year to try to treat these diseases, right? But unfortunately, it's just not. With breast cancer, for example, the studies are showing that diet is related to approximately 50% or up to 50% of all breast cancer cases, even with pancreatic cancer, about 50%. So we know that dietary cancers, hormone-driven cancers, are very, very strongly linked to what we're eating and how we're living. Right.
Okay, so when it comes to your clients that you get that have cancer, what are your like top 3 things that you immediately tell them to do? Even, I mean, like, is there a way to say that, like, or is it different based on each cancer type, or is it pretty much the same? Like, in terms of, terms of like the gross, like, the basics.
The basics are always present. The foundation is always there. So we start with the cancer protective diet, of course, because that's the number one thing that we have control over. That's the easiest thing that we can actually alter. And that's actually the most powerful way to alter our body chemistry is through our nutrition. So our biochemistry. So anti-cancer diet, number one. And because we know that the diet that's linked with prevention is a whole food plant-based diet. We know that that's been established in research for the last 40 years. So that diet is the one that I recommend during treatment as well, as much as possible, as much as is feasible for someone. Of course, it does vary according to the cancer type and in terms of how much, like if they can actually eat solid foods at that point in time. But we always focus on plants as much as possible. So focusing on whole grains, legumes, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds, and looking at the protein intake is really, really important for cancer patients because they need more than someone who's not going through treatment. and looking at just supporting their protein status is really, really important. Looking at whether or not they have weight loss at diagnosis, so that they don't basically fall into malnutrition. So there's some aspects that are very, very different, but the main diet is the same. And then I always talk about physical activity just to, to move the lymphatic system as much as the lymphatic fluid as much as possible, to help detoxify the body that way. When you're going through treatment, that's really, really important to support the immune system and support detoxification processes. So like rebounding, Chris Work is a huge fan of that. You talked about Chris Work. Walking every single day, lymphatic drainage massages are really important in that case as well. And then I would say the third pillar is the mind, body, spirit pillar, which is basically shifting into a healing mindset and really, adopting spiritual practices to help you with, and mindfulness practices to help with supporting the body in its healing abilities that we have, innately, and that we have access to always, but it's really, really hard to tap into those when we're in a state of fear and shock upon diagnosis. So those are my three things: diet, movement, spiritual practice.
What are your favorite spiritual practices?
It's different according to the client, but for myself, I love meditation. I love pranayama breathing, prayer. I think prayer is what got me through my treatment. I would say I wasn't introduced to meditation until much later in my life, but prayer is what I just did innately, naturally. And I would just pray for 2 hours a day even, and, just ask God for help and guidance of getting me through this, and making sure that, or not making sure that, but asking for guidance toward the right practitioners and the right people to support me along my treatment. And honestly, everything that I prayed for, I don't know how I've got this lucky, but everything just kind of flowed.
Wow.
I did meet the right practitioners, and I was supported in ways that I never expected or imagined.
So it's beautiful.
Thank
you.
We're
so glad that you're here, my friend. Oh my goodness. Oh,
so many of us go through this though, right? So many people go through cancer. It's a lot.
Yeah. Can you give us some statistics on that? I mean, you said 50. Well, okay. Give me some cancer stats again.
Oh, cancer stats. So the lifetime risk of actually being diagnosed with cancer within your life as a female is about 38% in North America.
Okay.
As a male, it's 37% in North America. Cancer rates are on the rise. They're, by the year 2030, we're expected to have, I think, 27 million cases of cancer. In 2012, it was, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think it was 12 million.
A lot less.
It's a lot less. Yeah. So they're expected to rise by like 70% in the next 20 years.
Oh my goodness.
So prevention is really where we have to focus, because treatment isn't, we don't have a cure for cancer, right?
It's not always guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
And then is the prevention the same, like in terms of preventing and then preventing remission, or not preventing remission, preventing the occurrence? Is it the same?
That's another, Stacey, it's like you read the book Life Over Cancer. Because I'm just reading it. So like Dr. Keith Block, the physician that wrote the Life Over Cancer book that I'm talking about, he says this. He's like, people focus on the active treatment aspect of things, and reducing tumor bulk and being in remission and getting that stamp of approval, and then things tend to kind of stop, and we think we're in remission and it's all good. But that's actually when the prevention aspect and suppression of cancer cell growth needs to be the most aggressive, is exactly at that time. Because now we've been probably through chemo, we've been through radiation or surgery, our body's been through, exceptional amount of toxicity and stress. We may have metastases that have escaped that original tumor bulk. And this is the time now, the post-treatment is actually the time to be most aggressive, to make sure that those cells are targeted and hopefully eradicated through nutrition and complementary treatments. and lifestyle habits. And then just to make sure that, that we don't have cancer recurrence, because oftentimes, for example, when cancer returns 20 to 25 years later and we think, oh, we got cancer again, it's actually the same cells, the same cancer stem cells that were not eradicated through our initial treatment, that have now reestablished themselves at a different site in the body, or same site of the body, and have now come back and formed into a new tumor. And we think it's a new cancer, but it's not. So that's why, like, the recurrence prevention stage is, I mean, for me, it's just I don't think about it every day, but I live my life in the way that it's always in the back of my mind. Like you know, Hannah, like you're not out of the woods. It's been 17 years, but you're not out of the woods by any means.
Yeah.
So,
wow. Can you talk? We actually have we have an interview. We have another talk here coming up in Holistic Mama Society right after this. Bless you, friend, for giving me so much time. But before we wrap this overview up on the podcast, can you touch on alcohol?
Yeah, of course, alcohol. So the studies now, they just came out 3 months ago. The World Cancer Research Fund came out with a statement that said that there is no safe intake for alcohol in terms of cancer. So, you know, we've always thought that, oh, a glass of red wine can help, you know, it has resveratrol and that's cancer protective. And part of that is true. Resveratrol is cancer protective, but resveratrol is found in the skin of grapes and strawberries and various fruits and other plant foods. And alcohol contains ethanol, which is then converted into acetaldehyde, which of course is a carcinogen. Or many people don't know that it's a carcinogen, but it's a carcinogen. And so there is no safe intake for alcohol, unfortunately. For those of us that are, yeah.
Thank you for laying that out there. Okay, I ask this question to everybody, Hannah, and I want to know from you, what does holistic living mean to you?
Oh, I love that question. I believe holistic living is embracing your whole person. So embracing your physical health through nutrition and lifestyle, and realizing that that's only half of the equation. There's also a soul there. And that to me is, you know, your mental health, your spiritual health, and your emotional health. So I look at it that way. I look at holistic health that way, and just making sure that we are caring for our whole person and not just focusing on, for example, exercise. If you're only focusing on exercise and green juices, healing will never be complete. You have to focus on your soul and your spiritual health and your mental health.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your wisdom. And I hope that this helps people realize the importance, Hannah, of just prevention is key. And I encourage just everybody that's listening to this to not just think about cancer prevention in your life, but think about the just prevention of, because cancer is our number 2 killer, right?
For the States, yeah, almost number 1. You guys are getting up there.
Yeah, we are.
And that's number 1. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. In where you are in Canada, it's number 1. Mm-hmm. That's sad. So yeah, heart disease is number 1, cardiovascular disease. But cancer's right up there. You guys, we have to protect ourselves. Okay. And we don't have to live in a bubble, but we do need to keep it in mind that if we want to prolong our life, and not only just the years of our life, but prolong, but maximize the actual years that we have in our life. What's the point? Nobody wants to get cancer, of course, but anyways, we need to focus on prevention because we matter and we have one life here on earth. And right now we're living in it. And we want to make sure that we are just protecting our beautiful bodies. So Hannah, do you have anything that you want to leave before, any last thoughts you want to leave before we learn where to follow you and the things that you have to offer?
Let's say thank you for having me on, Stacey, because like you just said, prevention is I don't think we care about it enough because we don't really think about it until something happens. But I think you just put it so beautifully. Like we have to just think about, living our life to the fullest. And if we want to do that, we need to prevent the diseases that we have control over. And we have so much power over that. And I think you wrapped it up beautifully.
Thank you. Now, where can we find you, and what do you have? Anything that you want to share with us? How do you work with people? Share all that stuff.
Yeah, so my website is backtobalancenutrition.com. My services are on there. I currently am doing one-on-one coaching. I also have a 7-day anti-cancer diet kickstart e-course that people can find on my website, and on Instagram, I'm at Back to Balance Nutrition, as well as Facebook. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody go follow Hanna because she's a wealth of knowledge and so fun. So thank you, friend. And I will see you in the society soon.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.